Right, everybody, warm welcome to today's practice, new moon practice. We have these sessions on full moon and new moon. And today's session is in association with the Zemnia Foundation. They've asked me to specially speak on daily practices for holistic well-being. So we're going to start with a meditation, and then I'm going to get you to reflect on daily practices that are helpful for well-being in a more holistic way. I'll, of course, share a few ideas, but more than trying to tell you what you should be doing, I'd like to get you to reflect on what you already know works. Because in my years of teaching, what I've realized is it's not really that people don't know what to do. It's usually a gap between what they're knowing and what they're living. That's usually the pain point. And so if we can help you bridge that gap to some extent, that'll be good. One book I recommend in general is Atomic Habits by James Clear. A very good book. Also, Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg is good, but I think this one's even more comprehensive. And of course, I've got to plug my own book, Unburden. It's also got some good practices, which you will find are connected to what we're talking about today. We're going to start with a meditation, and then we'll get into some reflection. So why don't you sit comfortably? So meditation is an opportunity to connect with yourself more deeply in a non-verbal way, in a non-conceptual way, in a more direct way. Notice how a lot of what you assume about yourself is based on ideas of how you should be, how you could be, how you would be. You may be comparing yourself to your siblings, if you have any, or your friends, or people from college you passed out with, or I wish I'd gone to college, I never went to college, and all the ways in which we compare ourselves. So in meditation, we are going to connect in a more direct way with the actual presence and reality of what's going on right now. And in that way, it's very releasing and healing in its own way, because for a little while, we put down the burden of trying to figure things out, and we rest into the mystery. In the Buddhist tradition, new moon and full moon are considered particularly potent times for practice. And not only in the Buddhist tradition, in the Hindu tradition, many traditions, this is seen as a really important time. There's something the ancients knew about rhythms of life that perhaps in today's modern world we've lost. There was a time when the time was dictated by seasons and by cycles, equinox, solstice, things like that. And little by little, we became more slaves to clock time. So from that perspective, there is a speciality about waking up early in the morning, Brahma Muhurtam, waking up early in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. These are special times anywhere in the world. And similarly, full moon and new moon are special times. In the Buddhist tradition, they fast and they usually practice all night on these days. A lot of Indian festivals are also around these days. So whether or not you understand that, just inviting you to get more attuned to your body and mind, to this present moment. And whatever needs to happen this particular new moon, whatever needs to be let go of, may it be let go of. Whatever needs to be integrated, let it be integrated. Whatever needs to come through, let it come through. A couple of days back, I offered a practice to the group that practices with me every day. It's called the Being and Blossoming Group. And they found a practice particularly potent. A lot of people had deep experiences with this practice. So I thought it'd be nice to repeat this practice for everybody on the new moon day. I'd like you to start by being aware of your breath for the next 3 minutes. The way you'll do that is you will, on the out breath, you will count. So for example, breathing in, breathing out, you'll count 1. Second time, you'll count 2, all the way up to 9. You'll keep repeating that 1 to 9, 1 to 9. If you lose count, start from 1 again. For about 3 minutes, you will continuously be aware of your breath. This will prepare you for what's coming up after. So let's do breath meditation. Gently counting at the end of each breath, 1 to 9, for the next 3 minutes. If the mind wanders, come back to breath and counting 1 to 9. 9 such breaths, starting again from 1, going for another 2 minutes or so. For some of you, this act of being aware of your breath is quite hard, it's quite painful. And I want you to know that this is very good pain. This is a good kind of hard. So even though it's challenging, go ahead and do it. Strengthens your mind. Step away from discursive thinking, come back to the now breath. Go for another minute. Whenever you're done, you can just breathe normally and keep your eyes closed if you like. I'm going to be reading out some simple statements. I'll be using a phrase, no mind. No mind refers to what is non-conceptual, not based on thinking, not based on memory, It's prior to your mind. It's prior to consciousness. You can think of it as your foundation. You can think of it as your essence. You can think of it as your essential self before you start labeling, naming, comparing it. You can also think of it as the mind of the universe. But it's something that you cannot directly understand, so don't even try to understand. In some sense, this practice is like surrender, like offering many aspects of our life that we're struggling with, handing it over to a larger intelligence, maybe a universal intelligence. So it's a process of letting go, it's a process of surrendering, a process of trusting. And I'm going to ask it in the form of a question. So if at any point it doesn't resonate, you can just say, no, that's not for me. And that's fine. And if it does resonate, you can just be quiet. Or if you want to say yes, that's fine. So listen to the following statements and see the impact they have on you. Don't try to overthink it. If you don't understand something, just let it pass. So would you be willing to rely on the no mind, to separate your pure intentions from your thoughts, feelings, and emotions? Would you be willing to connect your pure intentions directly to this mysterious no mind? Connect all your pure intentions to no mind. In other words, you don't have to figure out how they will happen, when they will happen. Just hand it over. Would you be willing to rely on no mind and allow it to dissolve all your inner blocks to powerful manifestation, creation from your core, creation according to your pure intentions? Would you be willing to rely on no mind to dissolve all manifestation blocks? Would you be willing to connect strongly with your potential manifestations through the no mind? Be willing to trust that the no mind has a far more intricate blueprint for what your life is about. Would you be willing to entrust your made up blueprint to the no mind and allow its blueprint to supersede, reorganize your blueprint? Make it into a magnificent blueprint. Next few statements, I will say as statements, not as questions anymore. See how that impacts you. Can you dissolve any need to know what to do next? So you say, I dissolve any need to know what to do next by relying on no mind. I use no mind to take and support all actions. All actions are taken and supported by the no mind. I rely on no mind to connect strongly with intuition. I rely on no mind to thrive. I rely on no mind to go beyond ideas of good and bad, liked and disliked, spiritual and non-spiritual. I go completely beyond all such polarities, dualities. I rely on no mind. This new moon is the perfect time to connect with no mind. Relying on no mind activates a complete, thriving experience in all the details of your life. Rely on no mind to dissolve all stories and beliefs that keep you limited. Relying on no mind to dissolve other people's stories that have an effect on you. Rely on no mind to taste a more complete freedom than you've ever tasted before, right now. Rely on no mind in the waking state, in the dreaming state, in the deep dreamless state. Rely on no mind in facing life, in facing death. I rely on no mind when it appears I have no other support from family, friends, and everything in the world. I rely on no mind. This is my perfect support. I rely on no mind to dissolve ideas I have about how creation and manifestation happens. I rely on no mind to dissolve ideas about what is the correct way to live. I rely on no mind to dissolve the cumulative effect of all stories from my life, my parents' life, collective cultural stories, ancestral stories, and the stories of our human race. Dissolving the cumulative effect of all these stories by the power of no mind. No mind allows me to become the action that I take. Actions flow easily and effortlessly. So when you become the action, then there is no resistance. Action flows easily and effortlessly. How do you become the action? Only when no mind takes the action. All cumulative negative effects of your past are dissolved with no mind. I direct no mind to reset and restart. Each day, each moment afresh, free from all influences. Reset, restart, afresh, free from all influences. This is the power and freedom of no mind. I'm dissolving all my uncertainties and concerns related to the future by relying on no mind. Dissolving all uncertainties and concerns about the future, thanks to no mind. I connect strongly to my best possible future with no mind. All energies are aligned All meridians are flowing. All chakras are balanced and luminous. All organs are functioning flawlessly. Everything is in alignment. Everything is in flow. Everything is expanded and expanding. Everything is radiant and luminous by relying on no mind. I activate all my deeper potentials, genius abilities, infinite capacities, grand vision, flawless intuition by relying on no mind. The following words you will repeat aloud or in your heart. No mind, no mind, no mind. I receive intuition and guidance directly from source. What is left for me to do? My physical actions are an expression of truth in this life. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Tathastu. Tathastu. Do a small chant. Benderasato samaya manopalaya benderasato tenopatishta dridho me bhava suto kayo me bhava supo kayo me bhava anurakto me bhava sarva siddhi me prayata sarva karma satame satang shriyang kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan Sarva tatha gata bendara mame mansa bendari baba maha samaya sadhu Bendara sato samaya mano balaya bendara sato tenopa tishta drido me baba suto kayo me baba supo kayo me baba anurakto me baba sarva siddhi me prayatsa sarva karma satame sitang shriyang kuruham ha 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 ho bhagavan Sarva tatha gata bendaram mame manza bendari baba maha samaya sato Bendara sato samaya manopalaya bendara sato tenopa tishta drido me bhava suto kayo me bhava supo kayo me bhava anurakto me bhava sarva siddhi me prayatsa sarva karma sutame sitang shriyang kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan sarva tatha gata bendaram mame mansa bendari bhava Sato Aruttaram Jyoti Aruttaram Jyoti Taniparam Karunai Aruttaram Jyoti Aruttaram Jyoti Aruttaram Jyoti Taniparam Karunai Aruttaram Jyoti Arutparam Jyoti, Arutparam Jyoti, Taneparam Karunai, Arutparam Jyoti, 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 Arutparam Jyoti, Arutparam Jyoti, Taneparam Karunai, Arutparam Jyoti. So this no mind bows to that no mind, which is not separate from this no mind. And may you be guided by this unseen, unknown, indescribable, ununderstandable, mysterious origin, foundation that supports everything. May this guide you. May this support you, may protect you. May you rely on this in a million ways, in all ways. And in doing so, may this life truly be graceful and easeful, luminous. And may you truly be a bright channel of blessings, a radiant channel of blessings. Wherever you sit, wherever you stand, wherever you walk, wherever you lean, may you emit subtle frequencies of blessings. May that place be blessed. May those around you be blessed. May all those who walk there or be there or breathe there ever again be blessed. And like this across space, and like this across time, and like this across all dimensions. May you be a pure, potent, radiant, wide open, and vacant channel of blessings. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. For the next minute, you can take a few deep breaths. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. I'll speak a little bit about daily practices for well-being. And I'm someone who has been somewhat obsessed with this idea for a very long time. And from quite a young age, I was very eager to find out what are the best practices I can do. So I began attending retreats and workshops and reading books. And I remember early on, I read this book the Silva mind control method. And I was very impressed. Wow, I can use my mind to control things. And how I can have intuition and all these things. And it was fun accessing the deeper mind and things. I also did a Zen retreat, 3-4 days Zen retreat. But the real proper instructions I got when I went for my first Vipassana retreat, I was about 16, 17 years old. And that's when I began a daily practice of meditation. And slowly that expanded into I went for a very nice course where there used to be a very famous doctor in Pune called Dr. Fadnas. And he ran a yoga and meditation course. So I remember doing his yoga retreat, and I began doing yoga and pranayama and meditation every morning, reading a few pages from some inspiring book. And I would feel bulletproof after doing that. I would feel invincible after doing that. And the days, for any reason, I woke up late or I was lazy or whatever happened, and if I missed it, then I felt, shucks, I've spoiled my day, I haven't done my practices. So what I'm trying to say is that there was a time in my life where my well-being depended on my practices. And one important paradigm I want to share with you is, what if it was the other way around? Your well-being did not depend on practices, but the practices were an expression of your inherent well-being. Because for a long time, I thought, if I don't do my 2 hours of meditation, if I don't do my exercise, if I don't do my reading, whatever it is I thought I should be doing, if I don't do those things, I can't be in a happy state. And there is some truth to that, but this is a kind of conditional happiness. I'll do this. So as long as I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, I'll be in a good state. And one big paradigm shift that happened to me was realizing that I'm inherently okay. I'm whole and complete. And the practices are not to make me whole and complete. The practices are an expression of my wholeness and completeness. So it's a very different way of approaching it. So we don't want to deny the importance and the benefit of practices. At the same time, we don't want to get locked into them and because then what at least for people like me, what would happen is I'd get more and more ambitious. I would say, why not also add this practice? Why not also add that practice? Why not also do a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And before I knew it, I had a very complex daily routine. It was absolutely unsustainable. It will all come crashing down. And it'll be helpful for you. I don't know if you've ever done this, but study the lives of great spiritual masters. It's quite fascinating. They're not always, we always say, oh, they walk their talk, but they're not necessarily practicing all the things they teach. Right? Because they're living it, they've become it. Right? Somebody interviewed Sadhguru. Sadhguru teaches so many yoga practices, so many breathing practices, so many different. What do you practice? So he smiled and said, I do a little Surya Namaskar. That's all he does. After teaching all of these things, I do a few rounds of Surya Namaskar. Right? So, and not that what he's teaching is wrong. It's just that it's to get you to a place where you become an expression of that. So over the years, I've collected a very large number of practices. And for me, they are all like friends. And I had this, it's interesting, when I ordained as a monk, I don't know if you know this, but Buddhist monks have 227 rules to follow. And those are just the major rules. There are many more minor rules. 227 rules. So for some of you, it'll be like 227 is a lot of rules. Oh my goodness. What kind of a cage? You're putting yourself into a cage. What a restrictive lifestyle. And that's one way of looking at it. My perception, however, was when I ordained as a monk, I literally had a vision of being surrounded on all sides surrounded on all sides by 227 good friends going out into the horizon. So surrounded on all sides. Because each of those things are designed to protect you in some way, protect you from thoughts, words, and actions that cause harm. That's what they're all about. Yeah, there are a few cultural things which have crept in historically, but even they have some basis in compassion or wisdom. So it's how you look at it. So in the same way, when we approach our practices, then we have to ask ourselves, what is it that's really protecting me and nurturing me and supporting me? And over the years, I found different times I needed different things. And so instead of getting, there are the viewpoint which I don't really agree with. There is the viewpoint that you have to take up one practice and stick with it your whole life. And that is the way that you will come to some kind of illumination. Maybe it's worked for some people. But my understanding is that they say that if you want to reach water, you got to dig in the same place. People who are saying this have never even dug anything in their life. Because when you try digging in the same place, you'll find, remember geography class? Soil has got many layers. Soil is not the same homogeneous substance all the way down to infinity. So there's a rocky layer, there's a gravel layer, there's a soft layer, there's a hard layer. There are all kinds of layers. And at different layers, you may need different tools. So I actually, in my experience, and I'm not denying your experience, maybe it works for you, but in my experience, it's not true for all of us that you have to stick to one practice forever. Stick to a practice. In fact, people actually make fun of it. This is spiritual shopping. I actually encourage spiritual shopping. I think you should do spiritual shopping. Don't you, even when you go to buy a shirt or a pant, don't you go to 2-3 different shops and just check what's out there, what's available? Like sometimes you go to buy shoes and the first shop you like the shoes, but you'll still say, okay, wait, let me see the other shops and come back. Because who knows, I may get a better fit, I may get a better price. Isn't it? So why are we so afraid of this? Why are we so afraid of spiritual shopping? I think you should spiritual shop. I think you should try different. There was a phase in my life where I went to many different traditions, many different teachers. I tried many different courses, and I'm glad I did that. I got a sense of what's out there. And then I agree, having tried many things, then you can have one main practice or one main teaching, one main tradition. But again, don't close your mind. At different times, you may need different inputs, different things will support you. So I am someone who recommends making life your guru and assuming that everyone who comes into your life is coming with some kind of message, some kind of gift, some kind of teaching. Be willing to learn from everybody. Right? And that way you will find that your whole life becomes your practice. It's not discrete practices. Of course, you can have discrete practices which will support you. So now the question for all of you is that what are some of the main practices that reliably energize you, reliably give you clarity, reliably connect you to deeper streams of creativity and intuition? What are some of those practices? And then are you prioritizing those practices? And those who say that we don't have time, what they're actually saying is that it's not important. Because they have time for many things. We just look at their phone and look at their screen time, we'll find out how much time they have for all the different apps. It's not like you don't have time. I wonder how many people WhatsApp and has prevented from enlightenment. How many hours on WhatsApp, Instagram? So this is a question for all of you. What are some of the practices? So I can just share some of mine. So for me, I find deep breathing or some kind of breath work. I do simple deep breathing exercises like Anulom Vilom Pranayam, alternate nostril breathing, some Kapal Bhati Pranayam. There's a nice technique by Wim Hof. I like Wim Hof breathing. So not too long. I just do about maybe 10 minutes of deep breathing with the windows open, fresh air. And that's nice. Then I find meditation, and of course one can do some guided meditation, but after a while just start enjoying silent meditation. No guidance, no thoughts. And yes, it's a little harder than guided meditation, but soon your mind will learn to rest. First, with a meditation object, could be a simple meditation object like your breath. And then it'll just find its own meditation object. Like the other day I was meditating, and I'd never done this before, but I had a sense of there's a kind of glow coming out of me. There's a light emanating, like a soft bulb giving out a glow. So there's a glow coming out. And so my meditation object became that glow. Like there's a glow emanating from my body. What is this glow? I don't know, but it's just a glow. It's an emanation. And that became the meditation object. And as you go along, something very beautiful will happen. There'll be meditation without an object. So no meditation object. And yet, so in a way you're resting without an object. Objectless meditation. And sometimes meditation is difficult, and it's quite painful to sit there and so many distractions coming and going. Sometimes it's stuff like that, but you'll always notice the benefits show up that very day. You're a little less reactive, a little bit more patient. You make better choices for yourself, right? And when the unwanted things happen, they don't send you into a big mood swing for hours and hours and hours. Notice how fragile our happiness. If you're very honest, our happiness is so fragile. Someone comes along and says one thing, one message comes you don't like, gone. Happiness is gone. You don't do one thing that you promise yourself you'll do, gone. How fragile it is. So meditation makes your happiness a little less fragile. You're able to come back to your center. It's like you're riding a bicycle, and let's say you fell, okay? So without meditation, it's like once you've fallen, I'm just going to lie here and wait. How silly. Get back up. Okay, you'll fall, get back up, right? And after a while, you don't fall. Even you may just slightly, the bicycle, you hit a rock, okay, slightly you lose balance, but very quickly you come back to balance. You don't just fall down, lie on the ground, say, all right, I'm hopeless. Life is useless. So that doesn't happen so much anymore, right? So there's a certain beautiful momentum that comes into your life, the momentum of truth, the momentum of love, the momentum of compassion. And it may appear like you are doing this in the beginning, but soon you'll realize it's a happening. It's very beautiful. It's a happening. It's not, you're not doing anything. It's causes and conditions. So when focusing on thoughts and feelings and emotions, one tends to be more reactive. And when relying on, like today we talked about the no mind, the underlying silence, the underlying mystery. As we rely on that, we find that our mind and heart is far more malleable, far more like water finding its own path. So for me, meditation is a very powerful practice, important practice. Then reading, for me, whether it's reading or some of you are more listeners, like you prefer listening to books or ideas. Some prefer reading. I like both. I think I end up reading a little bit more. And what I like about reading is that it gives some very fresh thinking, some new ways of looking at things. So especially authors you admire. If you say, I read the paper every day, it's like, all right. It's a little different. You see the emotions of the paper. Notice how you felt before you picked up the paper and right after you picked up the paper. What happened to the paper? You were told about mostly the paper is what's wrong with the world, right? What's wrong with the world, the problems that are coming up. Very it stirs emotion usually, And of course, then throughout the paper, there are advertisements. You need a better phone now. You need a better watch now. You need a better car now. What are you doing with that old car? So very quickly you start, I'm left out. Everyone's gone far ahead. So if you look at that doesn't count. We want to read something that elevates our mind, elevates our consciousness, takes us above. In the Dhammapada, there is an image. There is one of I'm forgetting the exact verse, but there's a verse of the wise man sits on the mountaintop. And the people are living on the plains. They're susceptible to the floods. Sometimes the flood will come. and houses will get swept away. But the one sitting on the mountaintop is not affected by those floods. So can you read things that take you above the busyness of your day-to-day life? Take you to a higher vantage point. Yes, you may have to return to do your day-to-day duties, but for a little while, can you access a higher frequency of thought? And so anything, whether it's the Gita or whether it's a modern author, whether it could be in any religion, any tradition, doesn't even have to be spiritual, could be an inspiring biography of someone. It should be something that elevates you and gives you a new perspective. That's the kind of reading I recommend. Inspiring reading, uplifting reading. Or if you prefer listening, that's also possible. And then one practice which over the years I found very helpful is called clearing. And clearing has to do with your residual emotions. It's like an emotional workout. We all know to go to the gym to physically work out, but you also need an emotional workout. So for that, there are many powerful practices. For example, the Brahma Viharas. There are 4 Brahma Viharas: Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. Infinite loving wishes, infinite compassionate wishes, infinite appreciative joy, and infinite equanimity, balance of mind. And the reason we say infinite is that there's no limit to which you can develop this. All of us have these qualities, but they're usually hardly developed. So towards your close friends, you'll have love and compassion and appreciation. But towards most people, like, who are you? It's not there, right? So can we develop that capacity for love, appreciation, compassion, equanimity, balance of mind? This is one way. Then there are tools that I found very helpful, which I've often taught about and talked about. It's, for example, tapping, EFT, emotional freedom techniques. It's an amazing discovery that just gently tapping some points on your face and on your body helps emotions to move along. Fascinating. So check out, if you have never heard of this, go and Google emotional freedom techniques or tapping. You'll find very unique and interesting method. I find it very helpful. Also, there's Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Repeating those simple phrases. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. And it creates a cleansing effect of your emotions. Fully feeling what you're feeling is very healing. There was a TED talk I've watched where no emotion lasts for more than 90 seconds. It can't. But it will if you keep thinking about it. But if you stay with it, it will not last for more than 90 seconds. So fascinating, no emotion, no matter what's happened in your life. If you've gone through a breakup, according to this lady who's been researching this, if you just stay with the pure feeling of that breakup for 90 seconds, it'll move through you. But what keeps it from moving through you is the story. Oh, this happened. Oh, it shouldn't have happened. Oh, what will my life be like now? That again, it dunks you back into the pain again. So like this and some kind of an emotional workout. For some of us, writing and journaling is a way to, like a catharsis. So I really recommend becoming a student of all of these things. Don't just find one method and say, okay, this is the ultimate method and fight with other people. No, become a student of concentration, become a student of meditation, become a student of the power of intention, become a student of emotional clearing. I mean, just because I teach this, I mean, I still have my own, I still notice there are emotional blocks and their baggage. I still notice sometimes some certain things trigger that, like, oh, what's going on? Because we are dealing with personal stuff. We're dealing with impersonal stuff. We're also dealing with collective stuff. We're dealing with family stuff. We're dealing with genetic stuff. We're dealing with ancestral stuff. If you ever go to a conference and meet people from different countries, if you pay attention closely, you realize people from different countries, they come with their own gifts. They come with their own unique abilities, and they also come with the unique traumas. We have collective trauma. You pay attention sometime. People from European countries, people from countries that have had war, people from countries that have been economically deprived, they have unique kind of trauma. And that shows up as you pay attention. So then to be a lifelong student of dissolving trauma, the pain that we hold, the pain, what Eckhart Tolle called the pain body, right? Different things that trigger the pain body. And then of course, the physical dimension. So what do you find helpful? Whether is it taking a walk, doing some exercise, what kind of exercise? Like for myself, I find sport much more enjoyable than gymming. Like I've always found I get quite bored going to a gym. I can't sustain that. But playing a game, much more fun. So like if you make me, I'm happy to play frisbee. I'm happy to play badminton. I'm happy to, these days I'm into pickleball. So for that, I have a lot of enthusiasm. But you make me go and, do weight training, even though I do feel good when I do a little bit of weight training, but that's not very, for me, it's not very inspiring. So you have to find what works for you, right? So something to engage and energize the body is a very important part of our well-being. And then beyond the personal level, the interpersonal level. So I don't know how often as a family you meet and talk about what's really going on, not just what's going on in other people's lives. It's funny that my mother was a management consultant and she learned this tool called dialogue. So the version of dialogue in my family was we would have an object for some kind of a stick. Maybe it could be this pen. It's called a talking stick. So the person who has a talking stick is the only one who can talk. And so that actually helps, facilitates deeper listening, right? Because you can't interrupt me. As long as I have it, I can take my time to finish. And I put it down, somebody else picks it up. A very simple, good tool. So my mother started implementing this and we began practicing this. But soon my brother and I realized that the dialogue session would only happen when he and I were in trouble. So whenever my mom said we have to have family meetings, oh, someone's in trouble. Family meeting means someone's done something. So it shouldn't be only when you're in trouble. It should also be, you should just wait for something bad to happen. So suppose twice a week, you decided that we'll just sit and we'll just listen to each other. We'll talk about, we'll give a space for emotions. We'll give a space for how we're impacting each other. Sometimes small things happen. You don't feel like talking about them, but they have an impact on you. And then that becomes a safe space in order to express that, where people will not react so quickly, hopefully. If they just listen to me, don't react. This is how it affected me. And I'd like your help with this in future. If you don't do that, then this starts building up. And sometimes it leads to a big, Hindi mein kehte hain, vispot. There's a big explosion. And people wonder, where did that come from? One small little thing, why are you fighting so much? Because it's been gathering for weeks and months and years, it's been gathering. That's why there's a big vispot, explosion. Or the other one is you just start distancing yourself, detaching yourself. I'm not interested. I'm just going to go and do my own thing. And so that's the other way you get disconnected. And people wonder, how can you be so cold towards your parents and your brothers? Because so many things have gathered over the years. No wonder you're cold. Because you never dealt with it. You never prioritized that. So to be a lifelong student of this also, to be a lifelong student of relationships and communication, and how can we use our togetherness to create a deeper sense of belonging and connection. See, even false positivity, families who say, oh, we are very positive, we don't fight. There's another problem, there's a shadow there. It's like you're not allowed to express your disagreement. You're not allowed to, we are such, we're not the kind of family that ever shout, get angry. Yeah, but then you're suppressing the anger. This is a different kind of problem. So there has to be a mechanism where it's okay sometimes to ventilate and share your disappointment, your upset, your grief, your anger, all of that. When I was living in Utah, which is a Mormon state, Mormons have many amazing qualities, but I did notice a tendency to be overly positive and optimistic. See, they're told Mormonism is a form of Christianity. So they believe that they have the original teachings of the most updated original teachings of Jesus Christ and the prophets. And so in a way, they believe that they're the emissaries of God in this world. So if you're the emissary of God, you have to be so positive, so luminous, so happy all the time. Then everyone will be attracted to your religion. So a lot of pumped up positivity, a lot of pumped up trying to be happy all the time. It doesn't work. It's a fake positivity. It's good to be positive, but let it come from a real place, not from this pumped up place. And so that leads to a different kind of problem. So on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, can you create spaces in your family, in your relationship? Like I think Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, he has a very brave thing he does with his wife every week. He asks his wife a dangerous question. He says, on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate our relationship? On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate our relationship this week? And if it's not a 10, what would make it a 10? So he's giving a safe space for his wife to say, hey, this week it was just an 8 on 10. 8 on 10? Why 8 on 10? So this, what was the two? What would make it a 10? Oh, so these were the two things. This was some of the things that would make it a 10. And of course, what was also the part? Don't just talk about what's wrong, but also what made it an 8. There are many good things as well, right? That's a brave question, but that's giving a space for us to talk about what's working, what's not working. I like to say what's perfect and what can be joyfully improved. Another fun way of doing this, and the first time I did this with my parents, I found it very insightful. It's an exercise used in Boy Scout camps. This is where at least I first heard about it. So in the Boy Scout camps, you light a bonfire and you ask these 4 questions. What's your rose? What's your thorn? What's your bud? And what's your leaf? What does it mean? What's your roses? What was your high point of the day? What's your thorn? You can imagine it's your low point of the day. What's your bud? Bud is something that you're looking forward to. Like budding, right? Something you're looking forward to. And what's your leaf is something you'd like to improve, do better at. So in a rather short period of time, you got people to talk about things they often don't talk about. Or maybe they'll talk about the high point, but how often do you talk about your low point? Even with your friends. Does it happen with your friends? You're all talking about high points and no one's talking about low. Then you wonder, you say, oh, everyone else got great lives. I'm the only one. But you don't realize they've also got thorns. They're not talking about it. Or some friends only talk about thorns. And that's also very depressing. Only talking about what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. So it's important to notice, can our conversations be more inclusive of all the different states of being? That's another powerful practice. So I would say practices that energize you at all levels, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. This is important. Practices that strengthen your clarity and awareness. What helps you be more aware, more mindful, more clear, more present. Very important. Practices that activate the heart. So for example, I mentioned the Brahma Viharas, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. The short word I use for this is just gratitude. Gratitude for me contains most of these things. So gratitude practices. And again, gratitude is powerful because gratitude is, to me, if you want to, one of the secret ways, so-called secret, to activate the power of intention. You want a short lesson on power of intention. Be grateful for what you want before it happens. That's the one sentence summary. Be grateful for what you want before it happens. How would you feel when it happens? Practice that right now. This is the short version. How would you feel when you're healthy? Practice that right now. How would you feel when you get into that good college? Practice that right now. How would you feel when you have that amazing job, that amazing relationship, that amazing whatever? Practice that right now. Practice the feeling of having it now. So some practices around gratitude and awakening the heart, power of intention. Some practices around calming and settling the mind, meditation. I'm going to be offering a course. It might be a 6-month course on deeper states of meditation. They're also called jhanas, deep concentrated states, tranquility states, because this is not talked about very much. But these jhanas are like superpowers. They're like rooms of your mind that you may have never explored. Most people have never explored these rooms. They hardly ever come up in popular culture. People will say, oh, happiness is having this great house, this great car, this living in this amazing country. But very, very few people will tell you that happiness is your state of consciousness. And as you access deeper and deeper, calmer and calmer state, like even today, as we did this practice of no mind, some of you touched very beautiful states. You didn't go anywhere else. You accessed a beautiful state. Right? So accessing the inner mansion, There are many inner dimensions. So we will have a 6-month course on this. It's coming up. I'll talk about it soon. And also practices, like I said, for clearing. This is very important. Clearing, because if you haven't dealt with your emotional baggage, it'll keep showing up. Some of you already noticed this. Different jobs, it shows up. Different relationships, it shows up. You go to a different country, you're starting afresh. You feel so good for the first 2 weeks. Then again, the same old smell comes up. Same old stench. Oh gosh, same way of thinking comes up. So it's not because the world is bad. It's your way of looking, your lens you're looking, the perspective you're looking at. And so then to clear that, to clean that. And we're living in a time where all the things I've mentioned so far, there is such an abundance of information of how to energize yourself, abundance of information of how to be mindful and present and meditate, abundance of information on gratitude practices, manifestation practices, abundance of information on clearing. So you don't have to know everything. Some of us, and I think I'm included in that, we have a tendency to over-research and let's learn everything. I don't know how many PDFs and things I've downloaded over the year that I've never even read. How many books I've downloaded that I've never even read. I used to feel guilty about it. That then I said, oh, I'm supporting someone's good work. So, but the point is, take something, do anything. Like, for example, breathing is energizing. Taking a walk in nature is energizing. And doing some push-ups is energizing. Playing a game is energizing. You know, sitting quietly, even for a few minutes, can help you center yourself. Practicing gratitude, even for a short while. Even if you count 10 things you're grateful for on your fingers. I call this lotus of gratitude. Start your day by counting 10 things you're grateful for. Energizing. A big one is sleep. I think we are in an age of chronic sleep deprivation, to the extent that the CEO of Netflix asked his employees, which is our number one competition? So someone said HBO, someone said Amazon Prime. He said, nonsense. Our number one competition is sleep. So Netflix is competing against your sleep. So you might have noticed getting a good quality sleep, sleeping at an appropriate time. What time? Maybe I should let you guys sleep now instead of talking about sleep. But getting to bed at a decent time, and you'll find the day has a different quality to it, isn't it, when you sleep well. And nowadays, if you're interested, there's some very good sleep trackers available. You can get a sleep tracker that will actually tell you. Sometimes you think you slept really well, but you were tossing and turning the whole night. And some of them will even record your snoring. You think, I don't snore. And you say, oh my God, lots of loud snoring was happening also. So it's a fun thing, fun little technology thing that could help sometimes. But the main thing is prioritizing that. And so there are countless things one can say about daily practices, whether it's food, nutrition, whether it's your, the environment, the physical environment you're in. There are so many things. In fact, it's interesting. Here's an unexpected one. Do I have a video of it? Give me a second. I might have a video of this one. Yeah, here we go. Got it. So let me share my screen with you. This is something unexpected.
Here's an intriguing fact. In the developed world, everywhere, women live an average of 6 to 8 years longer than men do. 6 to 8 years longer. That's like a huge gap. In 2015, The Lancet published an article showing that men in rich countries are twice as likely to die as women are at any age. But there is one place in the world where men live as long as women. It's a remote mountainous zone, a blue zone, where super longevity is common to both sexes. This is the blue zone in Sardinia, an Italian island.
I'm going to skip forward a bit to the part where it's really interesting.
Their exercise, their marital status, how. Julianne Holt-Lunstead is a researcher at Brigham Young University, and she addressed this very question in a series of studies of tens of thousands of middle-aged people, much like this audience here. And she looked at every aspect of their lifestyle, their diet, their exercise, their marital status, how often they went to the doctor, whether they smoked or drank, etc. She recorded all of this, and then she and her colleagues sat tight and waited for 7 years to see who would still be breathing. And of the people left standing, what reduced their chances of dying the most? That was her question. So let's now look at her data in summary, going from the least powerful predictor to the strongest, okay? So clean air, which is great, it doesn't predict how long you will live. Whether you have your hypertension treated is good, still not a strong predictor. Whether you're lean or overweight, you can stop feeling guilty about this because it's only in third place. How much exercise you get is next, still only a moderate predictor. Whether you've had a cardiac event and you're in rehab and exercising, getting higher now. Whether you've had a flu vaccine. Did anybody here know that having a flu vaccine protects you more than doing exercise? Whether you were drinking and quit, or whether you're a moderate drinker, whether you don't smoke, or if you did, whether you quit. And getting towards the top predictors are two features of your social life. First, your close relationships. These are the people that you can call on for a loan if you need money suddenly, who will call the doctor if you're not feeling well, or who will take you to the hospital, or who will sit with you if you're having an existential crisis, if you're in despair. Those people, that little clutch of people, are a strong predictor, if you have them, of how long you'll live. And then something that surprised me, something that's called social integration. This means how much you interact with people as you move through your day. How many people do you talk to? And these mean both your weak and your strong bonds. So not just the people you're really close to who mean a lot to you, but like, do you talk to the guy who every day makes you your coffee? Do you talk to the postman? Do you talk to the woman who walks by your house every day with her dog? Do you play bridge or poker or have a book club? Those interactions are one of the strongest predictors of how long you live. Now, this leads me to the next question. If we now spend more time online than on any other activity, including sleeping, we're now up to 11 hours a day, 1 hour more than last year, by the way. Does it make a difference? Why distinguish between interacting in person and interacting via social media? Is it the same thing as being there if you're in contact constantly with your kids through text, for example? Well, the short answer to the question is no, it's not the same thing. Face-to-face contact releases a whole cascade of neurotransmitters. And like a vaccine, they protect you now in the present and well into the future. So simply making eye contact with somebody, shaking hands, giving somebody a high five is enough to release oxytocin, which increases your level of trust, and it lowers your cortisol levels. So it lowers your stress.
I just want to share that clip. So essentially what she's saying is the amount you interact with the people in your life is the number one predictor for how long you live. So just saying hello to the people around you. If you're in an elevator, saying hello to them, the people around you, just social integration, connecting with the people around you, being more open-minded, open-hearted, right? What an unexpected daily habit for longevity and good health. Isn't it amazing? So what I'd like to, it's a little late in India, but what the exercise I want to leave you with, and you can do it in your own time, is to think more holistically about different dimensions of your life, right? To think in the dimension of your, I would say, what energizes you can be one dimension. What helps you have presence and clarity? What gets you more present into your, what makes you embodied, more present, more in the moment? What helps you activate your heart, like gratitude? What helps you feel inwardly silent and still, like meditation? What helps you clear residual emotional baggage? Some practices can cover more of these in one go, which is great. What helps you have wonder and curiosity and play and joyfulness in your life? What connects you with your broader vision, the larger theme that your life is about? What helps you connect more deeply with your loved ones and the people around you? And as you think of these different dimensions, these are just some suggestions. You can come with your own dimensions. What practices can you commit to that will support you in all of this? This is the question for you. And those practices, like I said, may change at different times in your life and different places that you go. And so I would recommend not getting too hung up on your practices, not holding them too tight, learning and trying different things, but also not endlessly trying things. If you know something works, then continue with it, deepen it, strengthen it. Read books like Atomic Habits to get some ideas of how to integrate practices into your life. And I would say community is very powerful. Like, for example, we have this Being and Blossoming community, and we practice pretty much every day. We share from 10 different themes, whether it's meditation, whether it's intention, whether it's a project we're working on, whether it's emotional clearing. Sometimes there's music, sometimes there's games, different themes that I've selected. And we practice pretty much every day. We practice about half an hour. And that's an example. And people say that, Nitya, just the community just showing up for those practices. And even for me, just showing up and doing that session every day, that itself is healing and helpful. So you can create your own community, or you can join communities that are already around you that you connect with. And that community aspect is a huge one, because we can't always rely on our personal motivation. As we all know, that's very unreliable. Also, I found one insight from Atomic Habits that I got is, more than trying to change your habits, change your environment. When you make your environment, like for example, I have a rowing machine. In my living room, I have a rowing machine. So because it's right here in my living room, it takes me a second to get onto my rowing machine. And I'm rowing. And within 5 minutes, I can get my heart rate up to like really high levels. And then, it's like ready, and I'm perspiring within 5-7 minutes. So it's a really simple workout, simple exercise. It's right here. So you change your environment so it matches, it suits whatever it is you're trying to do more of. And change your environment to make it harder to do what you don't want to do. Right? There's this cartoon of this guy searching for the remote control, getting really upset. And in the other room, his wife is telling her friend, the doctor told me he needed to lose weight. So 3 times a week, I hide the remote control. So he's going around looking where the remote control is. There's another lady who went to a homeopath and said, do you have something for weight loss? He said, yes, I have. So he gave her a bottle full of pills. So she got very excited. Really? This will help me lose weight? He said, exactly. So how many times a day? He says, twice a day. Open the bottle, drop all the pills, pick them up and put them back inside. That's your weight loss. So that's how we have to do it, right? So this is what I wanted to share. And I know it's slightly kind of broad and ambiguous. And that's because, like I said, my viewpoint on this has changed. I don't want to give you that this is the template, this is what you have to do in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. The Buddha was asked how to have a good day. And I loved his answer. He said, when you have wholesome thoughts, wholesome words, wholesome actions in the morning, you'll have a good morning. When you have wholesome thoughts, skillful thoughts, words and actions in the afternoon, you'll have a wonderful afternoon. In the evening, you have skillful thoughts, words and actions. You'll have a beautiful evening. This is how you have a happy day. And this is how you have a happy life. So what is skillful? You have to find what's wholesome, what's skillful. I think it's not exact, for all of us, it's not exactly the same. Like, for example, I have a friend in Bombay. He's a gynecologist. He's a doctor. He says, Nitya, I love your sessions, but I can't meditate. But when I go for a 5-kilometer run, 10-kilometer run, then I come back and shower. Then for 10 minutes, I can sit. So after he's had a solid run and he's come back and he's had a shower and then he gets into his clean clothes, then he's able to sit silently for 10, 15 minutes. He's figured out what works for him. He needs to do solid exercise. Otherwise, mind is too busy, right? So you have to find what works for you. That's the important thing. And so in that way, you have to be a student of life. Good. So we have some nice, if you look at the comments, people have shared some of their practices. Very nice. What if I'm unable to choose from the many that I learned? So you don't have to feel that you have to do all of them. You can. Why do you feel you have to do every single thing that you've learned? Just do a few things. I mean, I used to get in trouble because I've learned maybe more things than I should have. So as a result, too much. So if I try to do everything, then I'm in trouble. I mean, I'll require maybe I don't know how many 60 hours in a day to do all my practices. But it's not the practices, you see, it's the state of being that you want. This practice is just a gateway. Imagine you come to a hotel, some of these hotels, the front, there's not just one door, there are multiple doors. You get very confused, which door should I enter? And the gatekeeper says, sir, go from any door, it's the same hotel. He says, no, which is the right door to enter? You get very confused, you're wasting your time. Just get inside the hotel. Don't worry about which door to enter. A big hotel will have many entrances. So that's not the point. We're getting confused with the practice and the aim of the practice. The aim of the practice is to be in a certain state of being. The more complex you are, the more complex a practice you need. You need a long, elaborate ritual to do, right? The simpler, more straightforward your being is, your mind is, simpler practices are enough for you. Don't need a very complicated practice, right? But that's all right. If you have a complex mind, do an elaborate practice. Give it those 10, 15, 20 steps and go through it. That's what you need right now, right? A little later, you'll find, like I said, you can even meditate with no meditation object. Meditation without a topic of meditation. Great. Very nice comments, and people have shared different practices. So like I said, the main thing I would say is to be a student of life, more than being a student of this or that practice. I used to be a student of Vipassana meditation, and I was convinced that Vipassana meditation is the ultimate meditation. Some of you may also believe that. But I have found this way of thinking is limited. Even the Buddha taught many different meditations. It's not true that he only taught Vipassana meditation. And so I had to broaden my horizons and realize that there are many different approaches. And for someone, for example, who's into music is a sadhana that takes you to enlightenment, because music is a study of vibration. Music is a study of vibration, right? When you understand vibration deeply, you have to be very, very attentive, very, very silent. Those who are students of music are actually students of silence. Their sadhana is about silence. And then from that silence, the next dimension of music emerges. So like this, you need to trust your own swabhav. Some of us are like, India also, we have the yogic path. If you're more active, karma yoga, go do stuff. If you're more bhavuk, you're more sentimental, then go direct your sentimentality towards God, then do bhakti, right? If you're more intellectual, then okay, then convert your knowledge into wisdom. Inquire who is the one who is receiving this knowledge. Who am I? Gyan yoga. So like this, based on your temperament, there are different practices but they're not leading to different places. They're coming to the same place. It's just based on your temperament. And so I would again say that today's topic, I believe you already know the answer. But there may be a slight gap between your knowing and your living. And then your job is to bridge that gap and start small and take help from friends and community. And really apply. You have solved so many problems. If you're still alive, you've been a problem solver. You've solved problems at a personal level, at a financial level, at a family level. You have solved so many problems to be here right now. So this is also just one more thing to solve. You can solve it, right? It's not beyond you. It's within your capacity. You can do it. So that's the encouragement that I wanted to offer you. And like I said, come from a place, whatever you're seeking, the shortcut, like we said, is practice the feeling of having it now. So what is the end goal of all of these practices? Holistic well-being. All right, what does holistic well-being look like, feel like, smell like, taste like, is like? So practice that feeling of holistic well-being, and that holistic well-being, when multiple people yawn at once, it's time for me to end the session. All right. Thank you all today for joining. We'll do a Mayurma, the symbol behind me. It's a symbol of infinite love. Do take your hand up. A nice big heart. Multiply by infinity 3 times. And we say together, Mayurma. All right, everybody, take rest. And I can make you can unmute and say goodbye if you like.
Thank you so much, Nitya.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Good
Night.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Take care. Take care. Be well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Lots of
Nitya.
love
Thank
and
you so
blessings.
much.